Hi, friends. Heidi am back with an interview. This time I'm speaking with Swedish composer and multi-instrumentalist Uno Helmersson, whose work you may be familiar with from TV series like The Bridge and more recently the documentary Flee, which has been nominated for the Oscars. Take a look at our interview and hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. Hello, Uno. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Well, thank you. So I'm connecting here with maybe introduce yourself for whoever's going to be listening or watching this video. You're a composer of many series and films, but I'd like to hear from you, please.
Oh, where should I start? Well, I'm a composer mainly working for film and TV, and I've done a lot of documentary projects. I've been working for, I don't know, 15, 17 years or so in the film industry.
Mm.
So I've written music for, well, from the start, the TV series The Bridge, which is a Scandinavian series. I'm myself from Sweden in Scandinavia. I come from the north of Sweden, cold and I guess quite similar to northern Canada, maybe not that far up, but
Mm-hmm.
almost, I would say. Yeah, oh my goodness, where should I start?
Well, if you don't mind, maybe I'll ask, how did
Yeah.
you start in music? I understand that you studied at the Royal College, but was it something that you knew was going to be a career and it shifted into composing?
Well, yeah, I've been doing music since I was a small kid. I have a really early memory when I think I was 4 or 5 or something. I was on a trip. My parents, they took over my grandfather's farm, so they
Mm-hmm.
became farmers. My dad was an engineer, electric engineer, but this was in the 70s in Sweden, and they have this kind of green wave movement. So he took over the farm from the family, and so, well, we went on a trip to Norway, just across the border over to Norway,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember sitting in like a diner or something in front of a piano, and I just started to play something that I remember that I have two elder brothers, and one of my brothers played the piano. So I
Mm-hmm.
had just listened by ear, and I just found out how he played. I took it by ear, So
Right.
that's kind of my earliest memory of music. And well, this is such a long time ago. It's 40 years ago. So I mean, with that said, you know, music has always been a part of my life, and I've always been playing piano, and then I learned how to play guitar when I was 13, and I started in a punk rock band. We were, not that good, but I wrote some songs, and it started, and around when I was 14, 13, 14 ish, I kind of, this is what I want to do. This
Right.
is what I like to do, and I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to, to be music. So
Right.
that is kind of where I aimed for getting into music, playing in bands,
Mm-hmm.
studying music, and from there, I think at some point in when I started music college, the Royal College of Music here in Stockholm, I kind of discovered that I was better on writing and composing music than
Okay.
performing it. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of turned, and also I just became a father
Mm-hmm.
back then, and I kind of felt like being out playing, coming home late at night, I want to have like an 8 to 5 work.
Right.
Um, it's more of a 5 to 5 work kind of, you know, like, or 8 to 8 or whatever, So, but it's so I tweeting. I went to some classes in film composing at the college, and I just got totally stuck because I love film. I love
Right.
music, and why not combine it? And
Mm-hmm.
I love philosophy and drama and storytelling. It's just it's so I kind of embraced it all and started to write music. And I did my first internship at the Swedish prominent composer Johan Söderqvist, and later on, after a couple of years, he took me on the bridge, which we did together with Patrik Andrén, who is actually living in Canada right now. So yeah, so that's kind of where it started, I would say. And I mean, the road, it's maybe it sounds really clear, but it's, you know, I've been doing so much different things on the way. So sitting here right now, like surrounded by all my technical gear and all that, it's, you know, it's a blessing. You know, I'm really happy that I can do this, because
yeah, I'm gonna ask you about your studio in a second, but I appreciate the history, because, you know, I wasn't sure what your work on the bridge was and how you came to that work in that TV series. That's actually quite world renowned. I know I watched it here in Canada, and it's unfortunate that it didn't continue, but it actually rippled across different places. When I've looked at, you know, when I was doing research to speak with you, a lot of people talk about how great the music in that series was. Do you think that working on a TV series like that sort of made it, helped you along the way in terms of the film projects that you would choose later, or they're just completely different, you know, they come at you at from different angles?
Well, I would say, of course, the exposure that you get on a TV series like that for sure helps you out, for sure. There's no question about it. I think what I gained a lot while doing my internship, and also being a composer assistant for Johan Söderqvist, was to learn the craft and how he was working, and, you know, creating my own ideas on how I want to work. So it's, I would say that, of course, it's the exposure is really a big thing, of course, because it's hard to, it's a competitive world, and it's a lot of, you know, it's not everyone that makes it. And I think that, well, I always thought that hard work and, you know, eating, I used to say that eat, shit, sleep, music is the thing that you do. I tell it to when I do my lectures in film composing and all that, you know, but yeah, I think that is kind of, because it's about endurance and trying to be passionate and never give up, you know. But yeah, it's the combination, I would say. And also trying to find new ways of addressing how to tell a story, or how to provide to the story, you know, with music. And try to, I know, you know, it's like you have 12 tones in different octaves. It's a limited amount of tones, but still you can, you know, it's culture, you're creating culture, and it's you have to kind of be in it, you know. So, but yeah, to answer your question, definitely being a part of that kind of, but we never knew that it was gonna be that big, you know, and people would embrace it, as is with projects. You never know. You totally believe in the project when you're working, you know, on it, but you never know if it's gonna fly or not. There's no, you know, there's no, how do you say it? There's no kind, you know, there's no answers. Yeah, there's just assumptions. Yeah. And
interesting.
Yeah.
So what's your process like in terms of, you know, you're now being requested to work on either a film or a TV series? You may not always have the finished product, I'm assuming. Like are there times when you kind of get a snippet or like a peek at something, and then you have to sort of start composing? You know, what is that process like for you?
Well, it all depends on, well, for example, how, I think a lot of this is about communicating with the director and with the editor and with the producers, you know. So writing the music, it's, I don't know, the tricky part is to find a common language, to you know, a common language about music, and
Okay.
trying to understand and also to catch up as a composer, because you come in late in the process. I mean,
Right.
I was working on a film just recently finished, and the director, she had been working on the script for 9 years before she started shooting. So
Mm-hmm.
with that in mind, it's hard to grasp the
Right.
process and all. So you're always like hunting and trying to catch up. And also I would say, yeah, I don't know if this is the answer of the question, because it all differs, but the best thing as a composer is to be engaged early in the process, just maybe even before the filming, to get a
Right.
script, to read that and to start to talk about music and visions and ideas and this kind of holistic, to create this common ground.
Right.
And then you start to toss ideas and send mock-ups, and eventually things will start to form.
Right.
It's like the analogy of, you have a piece of clay and you start to molding and it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a cup or whatever.
Over time, it'll develop into something bigger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that
Yeah.
it's trusting the process, I would say. Trusting that it's, having the experience. I mean, now I'm talking 17 years or so in the business, and knowing all the different, stages in the process where you are, and be aware of what your feelings or whatever it is, and trust that it's going to be good, because it's not always you feel like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if you're questioning yourself, or you just don't, you don't judge, I would say, because that is a really important part of the process, that if you're going to create something, you need to be open-minded,
Mm-hmm.
and trust your instincts. That's a
Interesting.
commercial, isn't it? Obey your instincts. Obey your, no.
Well, I mean, it's also true in a sense, because you are creating, as you say, it's a process of creating. So when you are in that mode of creation and you're in your studio as you are now, what's that like? Do you play around with sounds that you make with the instruments that you have in your studio? Do you write the music on paper? I know
Yeah,
that it depends on the process, but do you have a preference on how you work?
I
Like
love to work with sound.
hands-on versus,
Yeah, I would say that I come from hearing based.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, playing in bands, improvising, and with jazz and all that. So I have that, my I'm really, what you say, it's really important to me, the sound of something, the
Mm-hmm.
sound of a violin, the sound
Right.
of a piano, or a sound, ambient sound, so
Sure.
it's pretty much, I try to, one of my methods is trying, getting into this. I don't know if I show you I have these kind of modular
Oh,
systems.
yes,
I don't
yes.
know, I didn't know anything about it. And then I was like, yeah, why don't start with that and see. I don't know how synthesis works really,
So
So I
hands-on.
start to just patching, and things are starting to happen. So it's kind of a way of trying to do new stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or to fool yourself to do something different apart from what you did before. Because when you sit by a piano, you have your muscle memory, or you sit by a
Yes.
guitar, you have your chops and tricks and your comfort zones. So
Mm-hmm.
one part of composing is to try to get out of that comfort zone. I remember the first time I wrote music for orchestra, it's like, oh my goodness, I can't do it. I just said yes, and then I just crawled under the table. It was like, what have I done? I
It's
don't know this.
it's
So it
interesting
kind
you
of,
say that, because I was going to ask you if you have done that as well. But
I
it
have,
sounds
and
like you have, and it was a lot.
I have, and I think it's fantastic. And I would say that it's about you know, when you, I always try to, because I work a lot in the computer when I write music, because
Right.
it's, I mean, I have the image there, and I have the whole structure, and I have all my sample libraries, which I created myself, or if I bought them, whatever, you know. So I always try to, you know, collect colors of music. I used to say, and I've been saying this a lot, I think. I used to say that when I was finished at college, I wrote linear. I wrote from A to B. Now I wrote more. Now I write and compose more modular. So I kind of compose in colors or in modules,
Okay.
almost like an editor. So you put things together. Suddenly you have, you know, I can record an orchestra. You know, I can, you know, just have an hour of recording, and I've written things that are not, you know, even what you say, affirmed or okayed by the director, but I record it anyway, and then I start to
I
work
see.
it. I can stretch it out. I can, you know, turn it backward, forward, and something else will happen. So it's a process, and it's about finding different flavor or colors, I would say.
Right.
Actually finding, in this case, or in any case, finding the color of the film, or the temper
Right.
of the film, or
I
the
like
drama.
that. So in terms of keeping with the color, you know, analogy, do you have colors that you prefer, like strings or percussion, or do you tend to gravitate to certain colors more than others in your
Mhm.
music?
It seems like it, yes.
Yeah,
I think this is, well, this is, now it becomes a bit abstract. I mean, colors, it's kind of abstract,
you're very
and talking about this it's hard to kind of manifestate it in clear visions. But I like the idea. I have an idea or a feeling, you know, if you yeah, if you uh it's like you have a core of something, you know, you can feel the core. Let's take a wine, for example. You
sure.
drink you taste some wine from Italy or anything. It's a balanced, and you can sense the full body of the wine.
Right.
um, I would say that it is with like sound, or you know,
Mm,
I feel like I want to feel that. I want, and that's the core of the
right.
music.
The feeling.
If I get that, if it's, even if it's an ambience, or if it's a melody or a chord or whatever, you know, if I feel that chord, or that kind of um oh, this is so this is really abstract to describe, but I would
I
kind of
understand. I
describe it
understand.
as, you know, when you taste a wine that is totally balanced.
Mhm. Well, I mean,
um,
I relate to that, or like an excellent cup of coffee. Like I think we can all relate to that sense, even if it's abstract. We can
yeah.
not all relate to an experience of something that makes us feel what you're saying. You
Yeah,
know,
but
there's
you take cooking, for example. That's a good
right,
thing. You know, you have your spices that you cook with.
right.
If it's garlic, if it's chili, or if it's coriander or whatever, you know, you have your spices that you really like,
Hmm.
the umami or whatever, you know, the things that kind of, okay, with fish I work with these spices, and then I try to do something, and then I put in something else. Oh, that would be interesting.
Right.
What about orange here, you know?
Hmm.
So and suddenly you have this, you have that, you know, the balance.
Exactly.
And I think that
Exactly.
is that it's like cooking.
Mhm. Well, I mean, that's also a great example, and I'm glad that we're talking about it so that other people understand what it's like for you to come up with this wonderful, you know, sounds that we hear. Like sometimes we don't realize that that's also what we're experiencing when we're watching a film.
Yeah.
So to bring it back to that, you know, I've seen some of the documentaries that you have scored, and there are two that always that have stand out. They stand out for me, and that is The Painter and the Thief, and of course Flea, which is the one, you know, up for Oscars now. You know, and the relationships in those documentaries are so important, right?
Yeah.
Um, how do you? I think when I was reading, I think maybe an interview you did, and it is really about sort of complementing those relationships. Can you talk about those two films?
Yeah, well, with okay, yeah, let's see. Well, The Painter and the Thief was a really, when I did the score for that one, because it's a really ambient score. It is like, it felt like I didn't score it, kind of. But I also, when you do things, it's such a great film. It's a great story. It's a fantastic story, and it's so unlikely to happen. You know, it's just magical in so many perspectives. And I mean, what happened after is also fantastic, with how it went for Barbara and Bertil. I think it's really, when I did this one, and when I do documentaries, I feel so much respect for the characters, and I don't want to, you know, I don't want to overdo things. I don't want to overwrite, and I have to trust that the thing, you know, everything, it's there. It's just that you need to balance balance it. And you know, with The Painter and the Thief, it was really much minimalistic kind of score on that one, with just ambiances, sometimes just an arpeggio and just some rhythms sometimes, you know. So it was really, really minimalistic, and sometimes it feels like, oh shit, that was almost an easy, you know, I got away easy there, because it's not like a full orchestra or anything. But it's also a matter of trusting what works, you know. And I like to think, lately I've been thinking about this, you know, the impressionist painters, you know, where they, you know, you're painting outside, and you have to paint quickly because it was outside, and you know, maybe it's starting to rain or whatever. And then you were done with the painting. But if you were like a, you know, a real painter in like when they were like coming out, the impressionists, you were like, that's not even done, you know, that painting is not done. But I kind of like that idea of sometimes a mock-up is even better than the finished product, because you, on the way, you kind of overdid it, or you just you know, tried too much. And that is something that I really try to embrace. I like to think about it as, you know, the old Zen Buddhistic style thinking of, you know, when you come with an empty cup, you know, you don't go in somewhere with a full cup, you have it empty so you can fill it up with things. And that's how I address films, you know. I address it with like, I'm listening, I'm just, you know, taking in, and then things starts to happen, you know, music comes out. And also the idea of this, when you write music, and this is not entirely true, but it's an important thing, I think. The idea of having something, I would say perfection is boring. In my world, perfection is boring. It's nothing is happening when you achieve perfection and the magic is gone. I think,
like, what else is there, right?
Yeah, it's just an illusion, and it's kind of you know, the old Greeks and all that, you know. And I more like the kind of the wabi-sabi, you know, thing.
Oh yes.
Like the Japanese
the saying, exactly.
idea of that, you have, you know, you have a scar, you know, you break a vase, you leave it to a fixer, and they put like gold, these kind of gold inlays in the cracks, you know. It takes like a couple of months to fix this pottery, but you know, when it's done, it's still there, and you see the crack. As you have a scar on your arm or anything, you know, everything, it's just life, you know. And I think that is an important thing to be aware of. And I also like that writing music, I like it to be organic, and I don't, you know, 4/4 beat and 4-chord songs. I do 4-chord songs, I do 4/4 beat, but I like it when it just, you know, stretches sometimes. Oh, that's a 7/4 beat, and you know, it sounds odd, but it's working because it's organic and it flows. It's like the stream, you know, like the stream, when you have a rock in the stream, and the stream doesn't stop there, it just goes around it, you know, and moves on. That's kind of the analogy in that case, I would say.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you, I appreciate that. I am mindful of time, but you know, there's one, I listened to the soundtrack of Flea. I've seen Flea twice, so I'm familiar with it. But there's the sisters telling stories. That piece to me is that it gets me to that feeling, because I know, I guess because I've seen the film, I know what's coming, or I anticipate what could come if I haven't seen the film. So, without giving too much away, I wanted to ask you about, I think you work very closely with the director of Flea, Jonas Rasmussen, and I think I'm understanding that you were involved a little bit earlier on. Was that how it worked? Like,
Yeah. I mean, I was in because what happened was that Monica Hellström, the producer, the Danish producer of the film, she contacted me
okay.
quite early and said, like, I'm producing this film together with director Jonas Rasmussen. I think you should meet. I think you would like each other. So I packed my bag and went down to Copenhagen and met Jonas, and we just liked each other immediately. And then I started working with him. And as it goes with an animated film, I didn't get a fully fixed version until the last month of, sound editing. I mean, the last month of, finishing up. So I had an animatic, which is just, stills, drawings, and I had a voice, I had a recording. So I worked a lot with the recording, and I had a lot of thoughts about how he was pronouncing things and how he talked. And I listened to his, sometimes you can hear his agony and the relief of him telling the true story for the first time. And that was for me kind of a key feature of composing, trying to manifest his feelings in the music.
Right.
And I'm really happy how they turn out, because I'm really proud of the score and how it went, because I think I really nailed that one.
Good.
And also because it's also, when you think of animated film, you kind of think Mickey Mousing and all that, but that comes so late in the process. So you have to find the balance. And I mean, I really, I'm happy to work with Flea and also with The Painter and the Thief, where you have these enormously fantastic stories that it's even better than fiction, because it's true.
Right, it's true.
and being a part of those kind of stories, it's a blessing, I would say, and paying the respect for these people that are opening themselves and revealing themselves, letting someone tell their story about it, because you have to know that this is just one part of the story that is being told. It's not exactly true. It's just, well, it's not untrue. It's true, but it is edited. I mean, so
okay, exactly. It's
so,
still
so,
one.
And that you have to,
one version of that story.
Yeah, and of course, when you go with and when you go with music, you are actually you're altering the story. You're doing something with the story, and that is really important to know what you're doing,
right.
And paying respect to the characters, I would say. Definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. Thank you. I was curious before I finish here about your debut film, I think. Not your film, sorry, your debut album. You just released an album.
Yeah.
I know it's available on digital platforms. Was that a similar process as scoring for films or TV? Or is this something that you've been kind of working on for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, that was I never really. I mean, I released a lot of soundtracks and all that,
sure.
But I've been working with films so much, and it's nice to be. I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine she's an artist, and we were actually discussing the matter of working in a context, as you do in a film, for example. You work in a context, which makes it, there is a story, so you don't need to pretend a story. So and with that said, releasing an album was really something that I was kind of, oh shit, can is this even possible to do? It's a weird, it's just an unfamiliar sensation, and I kept doing that for a long time.
Oh, I see.
It took me a couple of years before from deciding to create an album to let to the release. It was, I don't know, 2 years or something or more. But that's also because I'm full-time working with writing music for film and all that, so it takes a while also. But it also, it's a bit scary, I would say. It's not, I'm not used to it. I'm gonna release another album and I'm working on it.
Nice.
It's not that scary this time, but it still takes a while to do it, and
Of
you want it
course.
to be good because you want, I always, I like, I try to make music that I like, and I want other people to feel the same when they listen to my music.
Right.
So it's kind of sometimes it's kind of a, I don't know, hedonistic maybe might be the wrong word of doing it, but I kind of like to, have a moment of relief.
Right.
I mean, look at the world and how it's been the last years, and now with war in Europe and all that. I
For
mean, it's
sure.
just terrible, and sometimes you need to, well, flee. I mean, in an escapistic way, flee, or hedonistic, or whatever you might call it,
For sure. For
So,
sure.
but the process of writing a record is like painting a picture. You're never done. You need a deadline, to finish up.
Always.
Yeah, totally. And you just keep on doing the same thing, and you get kind of, I don't know, choleric. Do you say choleric? That's maybe.
Yeah,
that's
I know what you mean. It's almost like you get caught up in that process. Like
yeah, you're just stuck in
over and
something, and
over
you just
kind of
keep
thing.
on retrying, and until you realize it's just a bad song. You have to
And you have to
just
move on.
leave it and do something else. So yeah. But that's a part of writing. It's a part of being creative, I guess. For me, at least, it might be different. I mean, we're humans. We have kind of the same structure, but we percept things differently, and perceive, and just act differently on things. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, no, thank you so much. I could keep asking more questions, but I will end on one last. What kind of music are you listening to when you're not working on your own?
Oh yeah, I like any
I'm
music.
sure it varies depending on
it varies. I find myself listening to, sometimes I find myself listening to just one song over and over again. Sometimes I get
That's
really,
a lot of us.
yeah, and it could stay for half a year or months or a year.
Oh, wow.
But I kind of, working with music, I kind of want it to be silent when I come home, and you're kind of occupied sometimes. But if I would put on music, I probably would go with some, I have 3 kids. My eldest, she's 20 years old, and she's actually, I'm blessed to have kids, and I'm blessed to have a kid that is really interested in music.
Oh, nice.
I mean, not writing or anything, but just listening to it. So I get a lot of new influences from her.
Right.
And I try to do it. So, but if I would go to something, I probably would listen to, oh my goodness. Yeah, it could be anything from, Miles Davis to Stravinsky to Arvo Pärt to Bach to James Blake, Unknown Mortal Orchestra. It's just anything. Yeah. I can't remember.
It depends on the mood. It depends on the day.
It does, and I think it's a matter of, I kind of like to read. So I read music also, and I read books, and when you get home, when I come home on a Friday starting to cook or anything, and then I probably just, start up Spotify playing Miles Davis kind of blue, but that's my safe zone. But if I want to go further, I don't know. It's just, I listen to so much music also in work. I have to listen and see what people like, and understanding. I've actually listened a lot to this composer Carlo Gesualdo, who lived in the 1620-ish something, and he does this fantastic madrigals. So, and it's fantastic music, and it sounds so modern. It's like listening to modern jazz. It's just,
oh wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm sorry.
I'm going to look him up now.
Yeah, look him up. There's this. I mean, short story. He caught his wife. This is just, I don't know even if it's true, but it's kind of true. He caught his wife having an affair with a duke. So he killed his wife, the guy, and their baby actually.
Oh wow.
So it was a terrible story, and he got away with it because it was honor, what do you say, a kill of honor,
Oh right, back in those days.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and then he fled. Short story, he fled to his home. He was also a duke in Italy.
Of course he was.
So he fled to his place, Verona or whatever, and he wrote "Forgive Me" songs to God for the rest of his life.
Oh wow, interesting.
Kind of.
Well,
but it's fantastic music, and I mean it's a horrible act, and he was probably a horrible person, but the music is fantastic, and
now we
you're
have
mesmerizing to listen
that.
to. And I like Book 6. You should listen to that one. You can find it on YouTube or
I will. I'm making notes. Thank you for that. I appreciate you talking with me about so many things. I've learned so much, but I also appreciate the work that you've done as well. Thank you, Uno. It's great.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Of course.